Hi everyone, hi Terrain.
Perfect. So, what I would like to do, Christina, is give you the floor. It is all yours. So go ahead, please.
Okay, so this is kind of spontaneously. I'm just going to explain the way we do it in positive discipline, how we explain the different types of parenting, is we make a chart that it's basically like this. Hopefully you guys can see it. And if you think like this would be really firm parenting, like very firm, you know, with very big rules. And this would be less firm here. And then if you would have here kind, so this is very kind parenting, and this is not so kind. Then the way most of us were raised is here. Very firm parenting, very firm boundaries, not very kind, not very like, oh, you're feeling sad, come to mom. It's more like, you're sad, go to your room, cry it out loud. And then when you're feeling better, come back. And this type of parenting here, that is very firm and not very kind, is called authoritarian parenting. And again, it's the one most of us were raised. And what happens when people are raised with authoritarian parenting is that, first of all, it's fear-based parenting, right? Children, they will do what you say, not because they understand why they have to do that, but because they know that if they don't do what you say, something bad will happen and you will cause that bad thing to happen. So they end up fearing your consequences more than what's actually happening. And this has many implications. One is that children will get really good at hiding things from you, right? Because that's what you're teaching them. Because for them, you finding out if they are in trouble, the worst thing that can happen, and they might be in really big trouble, that you would be like, no, but my child should know that I'm here for them. But they don't. Because what they believe is that going to you will get them into even bigger trouble. So you won't even pop into their brain as an option. If they are in trouble, they might go to friends who might not really be their friends. They might turn to, substances that help them deal with what they are feeling that are not very healthy for them. Or they might get themselves into even bigger trouble because for them, even though that's not what you want, of course, you love your children. None of these are bad parenting, by the way. All parents, or most parents, I want to believe that most parents, they really want the best for their children. And authoritarian parents, they are not authoritarian because they are bad parents. It's just because it was the way they were raised themselves. And they truly believe that tough love and harsh discipline is what will make their children grow and be a good member of society. So they do this because they truly believe that it's the best for their children. And they think things like, I don't need to tell my child that they can always count on me because they know that. But they don't. That's the problem. The problem is that when they are in big trouble, very often they don't come to you. And they prefer to go to someone that is not so good, right? And they end up, again, because it's fear-based parenting, it's all about external validation instead of internal motivation. So I don't behave because I understand why the behavior is wrong, because I want to behave better, because I see the value for myself in behaving better. I behave a certain way in order to please you. Turns people into people pleasers, right? My biggest rule is, how is my mom feeling? What is the impact of my actions in how my mom and my dad feel? Right? It's not about the behavior itself. It's about the impact of what I do in what my parents feel, right? So it's external validation. These are those type of people when they grow up, if their self-worth is attached to what other people, a pat on the back from their boss is like, oh, thank you so much. Oh, yeah. It makes their day because someone pat them on the back. Whereas it shouldn't be about that, right? It should be like, I know my internal worth, and I don't care if you pat me in the back. I know what I'm worth, And if you're not paying me more I'm worth, I'm going somewhere else. But that's why also people who were raised with authoritarian parenting, they tend to stay in the same job for a long time. Or even if they are not happy there, because those little pats in the back are enough for them. So one thing that happens is, first of all, external, people pleasing, trying to. The second thing is, as I said, they don't go to you if they are really in trouble, because the worst thing it can happen is that, you find out. And the third thing that happens also is that children, when they misbehave, I always say, challenging behavior is just your child showing you that they need some skill that they don't have yet. They are feeling, thinking, they want something. All those things are natural. Everyone feels this way. Everyone thinks this way. If I want a chocolate and I'm hungry, it's natural to want the chocolate, right? There's no wrong feelings. What there is the wrong way to, act on those feelings. And if you tell your child, go to the room, and when you're done crying, come back, what you're teaching your child is that they are supposed to deal with their emotions by themselves. If you tell your child, you behave wrongly, go and sit there and think about what you did, I can promise you the child is not there thinking, I threw the toy on the floor. I shouldn't have thrown the toy on the floor. Throwing the toys on the floor is bad because it breaks the toy. No, what they are thinking is like, I behave bad. I'm an awful kid. My mom doesn't love me when I behave like this because she doesn't even want to be with me. It's wrong feeling this way. I don't know what to do. I need to pretend that I don't want the toy next time. I need to pretend. I need to smile even when inside I'm not feeling good. If I need to, express my emotions in a way that my mom doesn't find out. And this might be hitting other kids. It might be doing things behind your back. It might be also just swallowing everything inside and, creating all these negative emotions and thoughts about ourselves. And this has a lot of repercussions as we grow. So this is authoritarian parenting. Then the next one is the opposite of authoritarian parenting. This is that type of parenting that is very, very, very kind, but not firm at all. So this is that type of parenting. It's permissive parenting. So it's like, I really feel sad. I cannot stand to see my child sad. I cannot stand to see my child struggling. It just really breaks my heart. It's just so much for me. And very often, permissive parents, again, they are not bad parents. It comes again from the way they were raised themselves. Because they really, empathize with what their children are feeling and thinking and wanting, because they project a lot their own experiences, their own past experiences onto what's happening with their child. And it's really important we remember that our children and ourselves, we are going through very different paths. And even though some experiences might seem similar, they are indeed very different, because your child lives in a completely different reality from the reality you lived in. They meet different people. They go through, so even though it's great that you have empathy towards your child, that's amazing. Again, being kind is like great. When you don't give boundaries to children, what happens is that children become very entitled, because they really start believing that the world owes them, right? Because whenever I'm sad, I just have to say, I'm sad, and here we go, you have a toy. I'm frustrated because, this is not going my way. Okay, we will do it your way. So children, they don't develop this resilience and they need skills. They are showing you they need skills and you are not giving them those skills. So when they are faced with situations like that as they grow up, they don't have those skills. And this really affects then the way they deal with the world, right? They always feel like, I had a bad grade, it's because the teacher doesn't like me. The kids don't want to play with me, it's because they don't want to be my friends. So it's always the other people's fault, the world owes me, it's unfair. And when we have this victim mentality, we aren't able to really develop the growth mindset, right? Because we are so stuck on everything's bad is happening to me that we cannot see what we can do to change our situation, because they weren't taught that growing up, and it will make their life much harder. Then the other one is when you have here, so it's not firm and it's also not kind here. This is neglectful parenting. Again, these are not most of the times. I want to believe in my heart that these are not bad parents. What happens is that they are so overwhelmed with their own emotions, with their own baggage. There's so much happening to them in their situation. Maybe they are dealing with poverty, addiction, or maybe they are just, they were never taught themselves how to deal with their own emotions. And so they really struggle to self-regulate with their children. And so they are just like, do what you want. I don't have time for this. And it's not, again, because they are bad parents or bad people. It's because they really don't have the skills to be able to deal with their life, with their emotions, with everything that is happening around them and inside them, and at the same time parenting. They can't. It's just, parenting is just too much, and they put it aside. And one might say, well, but children always come first, and it's true, but you cannot judge someone until you're in their shoes, right? So neglectful parenting, what happens is that children are forced to, figure it out for themselves. And this very often creates then themselves that they become also neglectful parents as they grow, because again, they didn't learn, so they have that harsh shell around them, and they find it very hard to connect with their child because they weren't receiving that. Or very often it happens the other way around, that they're like, I want to do better than my parents did to me. I want to be a completely different parent to my child. And they really try their best, and very often they struggle, and very often then they go into a mixture between neglectful parenting and permissive parenting, right? Or authoritarian parenting. They go like around there, because they, on one hand, they really want to be different, but on the other hand, they were not modeled growing up what you're supposed to do, and so they struggle themselves. Very often children that are children from neglectful parents also turn into other substances to deal with their emotions, because they weren't supported themselves, so they don't know how to deal with their emotions. And yeah, just basically that's it. And then we have here the best one, right? Where there is both firm and kind. Let me see again. It's both firm and kind. And this is, can call it positive discipline, positive parenting, gentle parenting, whatever you want to call it. That is both about setting very firm boundaries that at the same time make children, do it in a way, because when we are raised with authoritarian parenting, very often we associate discipline and respect with basically fear-based parenting, right? It's like, do it my way or the highway, and you will do as I say. I'm the head of this household. This is my house. You will do as I say as long as you live here, and all those things. But actually, discipline parenting is about teaching skills, as I said. And there's many ways to correct the behavior. And you can correct the behavior in a way that is kind. You don't need to be like, you will do as I say, young man. You can also be kind, You can express to your child that what they are feeling is okay, that there are no wrong feelings. Everyone is entitled to have feelings. Everything is okay. And also, what is the appropriate way to deal with those feelings? So I give you an example. I'm going to give you an example now of all the four. What would happen with a child that is in the supermarket and wants a chocolate, and it's lunchtime and you don't want to buy them a chocolate. So in the authoritarian parenting, which is very firm, not kind, what would happen would be something like this: you will not embarrass me. Very often also authoritarian parents, they fear a lot what others think of them. And it's more important to them what others think of them than what their child is feeling. And again, it's not because they are bad parents, it's because the way they were raised themselves, right? For them, it's very important that people respect them, because they associate, again, respect to fear. So they are like, you will not embarrass me. I told you, if you don't do this, when we get home, you will be stuck in your bedroom and there will be no toys and there will be no dessert, and threatening. And it will be like punishing and, all those things. Maybe spanking, screaming, or maybe just looking. Because a good authoritarian parent is good enough when they stare. They don't need to say anything, right? They just stare and you immediately know, I have to shut up now. Because if I don't shut up now, bad things will happen to me. So fear-based parent. So you might say, well, that's great, solve the problem. But did it really solve the problem? It didn't solve the problem, right? Because the child, what they learn is that they upset you, right? It's they fear what's going to happen now, right? They have this feeling, they want the chocolate, and they think that wanting the chocolate is a wrong thing. It's like they must be awful kids. They must be really awful kids, because if they weren't such awful kids, their parents wouldn't be so mad at them, and it must be awful that they want a chocolate. The other kids don't do this, and this creates all this internal dialogue and internal beliefs, those core beliefs that we have about ourselves. Like, you're not a good kid, you're always an inconvenience, you're always inconveniencing your parents. Coming with you to the supermarket is always, a drag. You make everything worse. You only do crap. You are always annoying us. And they start believing those things about themselves. That's not what you want. This is not parenting, right? This is what you want, is to teach your child the skills. But yeah, in the moment, it does work. But it does work also in the moment, because long term it won't work. Because eventually, when they will start rebelling against you, right? When they become teenagers and something like that, they will start rebelling. Or otherwise, they will always be like people pleasing you, but then doing things behind your back, like I said before. Then let's talk about the other one, the permissive parenting. That is very kind and not very firm, right? Permissive parenting. What would happen would be like this: I want a chocolate. No, you cannot have a chocolate. I know you want a chocolate, but you can't because it's lunchtime. Yeah, but I want a chocolate. Okay, then have the chocolate. That's permissive parenting. What does your child learn? He learned that whenever he wants a chocolate, he just needs to cry a little. Then the next one is neglectful parenting. Well, the neglectful parents wouldn't even be in the supermarket with the child, so I'll skip that. Or would just leave the child at the supermarket and leave. And then you have here, this both firm and kind, positive parenting. And here, what you would have, it would be like, empathizing with the child. I know you want a chocolate. It's really yummy. I love chocolate. I would also really want a chocolate. And then correcting the behavior. We can't have chocolate right now because there is no space then in your tummy for putting healthy food. And if you don't put healthy food in your tummy, you will not be able to grow healthy. You will get sick in your body and all those things, and then you cannot play, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, teaching what is the correct behavior and problem-solving solutions. Okay, when you want something that you cannot have, what can you do? Let's problem solve. Let's think about solutions. So what about in the afternoon we go for ice cream? What about we buy an ice cream, we buy a chocolate, but you only eat it after lunch, etc. So problem-solving skills. So yeah, these are, I think I gave a good.
What else does what else means, right? Doesn't mean that it's going to be kind of scary. Doesn't mean that you're going to try to figure something out. But the scary part is Like for me, I remember that it's either we're going to give you something to cry about, or it's usually fear based. And that's the scary part about it. But hopefully we can all identify which parenting style works best for us, and then we can go from there. What are your thoughts, Christina?
Sorry that I missed, stopped hearing you for a bit. My connection must have been crappy. Yeah, I mean, of course, the American Association of Pediatrics, they recommend positive parenting. There are many studies that show that there's a lot of benefits for positive parenting. And it's hard when you were not raised with positive parenting to implement positive parenting in your home, but it's definitely not impossible. There's a lot of people out there doing it, and you can do it too. And parenting always starts with ourselves. We need to, those things when people say, be the change you want to see in the world. I always say, be the change you want to see in your child. So it always starts with us. Because when children trigger us, they would prefer we didn't have triggers, right? They are not doing it on purpose. And it's up to us to remember that even though it's valid what we are feeling and it's really overwhelming, and parenting in today's world is really so much more demanding than it was in our parents' time. We are parents, we are adults with fully developed brains, and children are still growing and they need our support to grow healthy. So even though we are feeling triggered in the moment, we cannot take it out on our children, right?
Yeah, that's always the concern, right? Like Tyler has a question. What is your opinion on giving children a reason not to do something?
Like, give me, stop crying or I'll give you a reason to cry, you mean?
Yeah, something along those lines, right? Where it's like, you know what? I will give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
Or better yet, just asking, you know what if a child wants something, but you have to give them reason for them not to want it?
Yeah. I mean, it's again, it comes very much from the way we were raised ourselves, because very often it also happens that our parents talk to us in a similar way, like, you know, you are bothering me. Don't you dare bothering me. Don't you dare making other people think bad of me. You are doing things that are reflecting on me. So we kind of grew with that sense that we belong to parents and children belong to parents. And the job of a child is to obey the parents, and this power, submissive power, relationship. And so when parents do that, it's first because that's what they were modeled growing up, and also because, again, they were not taught growing up how to self-regulate or to deal with their emotions in a healthy way. And it's always much easier to let our emotions show to people who are more vulnerable than us than to our equals. So very often, that's why I always say some parents treat their kids much worse than they would ever treat their mailman. And it's because of that, because they see the mailman as an equal, right? So they would never tell the mailman, hey, stop that. Don't you see that I'm doing this? How dare you interrupt me? But they would do that to their child and maybe even spank them. Like, I told you not to put toys on the floor. Spank them, right? Because they see the child as kind of like they are submissive to them. They should be submissive to them because that's all the only way that fear-based parenting works. So yeah, unfortunately, the first step is always self-regulation. And I know that this is hard because very often when parents come to me for help, what they want is for me to fix the child's behavior. And yes, we do also do that, but we also need to always deal with your own emotions and with self-regulation, because you may have all the wonderful tools, all the parenting tools out there, but if you're not able to self-regulate, you're not able to access the rational part of your brain, you're just letting your emotions be in charge of your parenting. So you will always, when our emotions are high, we always end up doing and saying things we regret. And if we are doing that with a person that we believe, even if unconsciously, even if not, that's not what we want, but unconsciously, because of the way we were raised, we feel like our children are below us, right? And so it's very easy when our emotions are in charge for us to react in ways that later we regret.
So, Christina, let me ask you a final question before you leave. I'm going to give you, and I'm doing this for every single person, I'm going to give you Aladdin's genie lamp. 3 beautiful wishes, okay? And you can't wish for money or forever life. What are 3 things you wish parents knew about raising their children, and why?
Well, one is that there are no perfect parents. And no matter what you will do, you will always screw up your child. And it's not about being a perfect parent. It's about doing the best you can 51% of the time. So if more than half of your time you're being the parent that you're proud of, you need to have the self-compassion during the rest of the 49% to know that you didn't become superhuman the day you became a mom, that every single mom out there screws up sometimes, and that you will for sure screw up, and that you need to take care of your own needs in order to be able to do those 51. Because if you are, swallowed in self-guilt and thinking, oh my God, I'm the worst mom alive, you will not even be able to do those 51%, because you will be so focused on, I already screwed up, might as well. It's like when you're on a diet, you're like, oh, I ate a little cake, might as well now eat the pudding and the ice cream, right? It's the same with parenting. You're like, I'm a worst mom alive. Well, do what you want today. I don't care anymore. Tomorrow we start over. But you lost there an opportunity to say, I'm sorry to my child, to make amends, to show your child that everyone makes mistakes, including mom, because very often we were not raised that way ourselves. We think our parents were perfect, kind of like that, until we are teenagers. That's when we realize, they are not perfect. But it's important that you show your child, since they are very little, that you are not perfect and that they don't have to be perfect. Because when you try to achieve perfection, you're always failing. You're always feeling like a failure. So a growth mindset, 51% of the time. So that would be my first wish. The second one would be, remember that even though it's really valid, every single thing you're feeling, that even though that any person in your situation would be feeling overwhelmed, overstimulated, that it's really unfair, all that is happening to you, that you have to deal with, it's like so much stuff that is demanded of parents, and it's really unfair. Even though all that, your child is a child, you're an adult. It's your job to, get over it. And the third thing is, children wish we didn't have a trigger. They are not triggering us because they are bad kids. They just need us to teach them skills.